Izzy, we're live.
Sergeants, if you can begin your recordings.
PC recording has begun.
Cloud is rolling.
Good morning and welcome to today's remote New York City Council hearing of the Committee on Small Business. At this time, would all panelists please turn on their video? To minimize disruption, please silence your electronic devices. And if you wish to submit testimony, you may do so via email at the following address: testimony@council.nyc.gov. Once again, that is testimony@council.nyc.gov. Thank you for your cooperation. Mr. Chair, we are ready to begin.
Thank you, Sergeant Martinez. Good morning. I'm Councilmember Mark Jonite, Chair of the Committee on Small Business, and I'd like to welcome you to our remote hearing. Our goal today is to look into regulatory burdens on small businesses and to engage with the administration and advocates on how to make New York City the most small business friendly city in America. Starting, owning, and operating a small business in New York City can be a challenge. Small businesses must deal with consumer behavior changes, big box store competition, street vendors, e-commerce, a host of taxes, including water, sewer, sales tax, and property tax, while they remain in compliance with the many ever-changing rules, regulations, and codes overseen by multiple departments and agencies to lawfully conduct business. City agencies that regulate small businesses issue tens of thousands of violations each year, which has led to an outcry from the small business community on the need for regulatory relief. According to a survey from the Red Tape Commission convened by Comptroller Stringer, over 20% of businesses cited fines and inspections as their greatest frustration with city government. As chair of this committee, it has been my priority to make the city government an ally to small business instead of a hindrance to their success. I share with you one frustrated small business owner, which referred to New York City as my silent partner that runs my business and takes most of the profit. I'm proud that we have enacted Local Law 80 of 2021, which reduces or waives financial penalties for sanitation, health, transportation, consumer affairs, noise control, and building violations. I am also proud to have sponsored Local Law 81 of 2021, which created an amnesty program that waives interest on penalties imposed by the Environmental Control Board. I look forward to hearing an update from DOF today on enforcement of Local Law 81 and how many business owners have been able to use this amnesty program, which is due to expire soon. While these efforts have been successful in cutting red tape, more must be done. I was glad to see the city announced yesterday a new $100 million small business resiliency grant for hard-hit sectors in low to moderate income communities. Our small businesses need financial relief, and this program is a step to ensure the businesses have the capital necessary to survive this pandemic. This administration will obviously be ending soon, and I'd like to thank my dear friend, the Commissioner of SBS, Janelle Doris, for his friendship, tireless work, energy, and commitment that you and your team have put in over the last 2 years. The COVID crisis has been the biggest challenge to face small business city in this city's history, and the small business community was lucky to have you as their advocate, Commissioner. Your experience and expertise in all small business related issues is unparalleled. So I look forward to a productive conversation today, a fruitful conversation on what further burdens can be cut for the small business community, what challenges persist for small businesses in this city, And what should the next administration focus on so that the small business community can recover from the pandemic and thrive later? Additionally, I'd like to focus this hearing on the mayor's recent announcement to expand the Key to NYC program to children aged 5 through 11. I hope to hear how the city will ensure this will not harm businesses and further put a regulation burden on our businesses. Tourists visiting New York City from other countries may not be vaccinated or be able to be vaccinated, to have their children vaccinated in their home countries before arriving to New York City. So they will be unable to patronize these businesses covered by the mandate. While these tourists could get vaccinated in New York City, they will then need to spend part of their vacation dealing with potential side effects from the vaccine and expense of getting vaccinated. I hope to get clarity today on some of these concerns. With that said, I want to thank my legislative director, Austin Sacker, our legislative counsel, Stephanie Jones, our policy analyst, Noah Meixler, and financial analyst, Aliyah Ali, for all their hard work in preparing for this hearing. Since this will be the last hearing on small business, I want to thank all of the council staff for your support and your hard work. You have been an asset to this institution, and it has been my honor to work alongside of you to serve this great city. Thank you. I pass it back to the Sergeant at Arms or Committee Counsel for some procedural words.
Thank you, Chair. I am Stephanie Jones, Counsel to the Committee on Small Business, and I will be moderating this hearing today. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone that you will be on mute until you are called on to testify, at which point you will be unmuted by the host. During the hearing, I will be calling on panelists to testify. Please listen for your name to be called, as I will periodically be announcing who the next panelist will be. At this hearing, we will be inviting testimony from the Department of Small Business Services, followed by testimony from members of the public. During the hearing, if council members would like to ask a question of the administration or a specific panelist, please use the Zoom raise hand function and I will call on you in order. We will be limiting council member questions to 5 minutes, which includes the time it takes to answer your questions. For all panelists, when called to testify, please state your name and the organization you represent, if any. We will now call representatives of the administration to testify. We will be hearing testimony from Janelle Doris, Commissioner of the Department of Small Business Services. We will also be joined for questions by Amna Malik, Assistant Commissioner of Business Operations and Regulatory Reform at SBS, and Jeff Shear, Deputy Commissioner of Treasury and Payment Services at the Department of Finance. At this time, I will administer the affirmation. Administration panelists, please raise your right hands and I will call on each of you individually to respond. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee, and to respond honestly to council member questions? Commissioner Doris?
I do.
Thank you. Deputy Commissioner Shear?
I do.
Thank you. Assistant Commissioner Malik?
I do.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite Commissioner Doris to present his testimony.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Chair Jonai and members of the Committee on Small Business. I'm John L. Doris, the Commissioner of the New York City Department of Small Business Services. At SBS, we aim to unlock economic potential and create economic security for all New Yorkers by connecting them to quality jobs, building stronger businesses, and fostering thriving neighborhoods across the 5 boroughs. I'm here to testify on the oversight hearing on regulatory burdens on small businesses. I'm joined by Deputy Commissioner Jeffrey Shear from the Department of Finance and also from my senior team, Assistant Commissioner Amna Malik. In the spring of 2020, it became clear that small businesses would be hit exceptionally hard by the economic impacts of COVID-19. The agency quickly shifted our work to meet these challenges. SBS created a small business recovery plan designed to jumpstart the economy in the short term while laying the groundwork for sustainable small business recovery in the long term. This small business recovery plan, developed in collaboration with business leaders, industry associations, and government partners, was based on four strategies to ensure an equitable citywide economic recovery: support business innovation to increase revenue, equip entrepreneurs with tools to adapt and lower operating costs, foster close collaboration with businesses to cut red tape, and promote equitable economic growth while supporting diverse businesses of the future. As a result, we launched and expanded 51 recovery programs, initiatives, and campaigns. Our team received more than 75,000 calls to our hotline, visited more than 175 commercial corridors, hosted more than 860 webinars with more than 56,000 attendees, and delivered 337,000 services to businesses. Access to capital has been the most critical need in the small business community during the pandemic. SBS has connected New York City small businesses to more than $500 million in funding opportunities to weather the crisis and build back stronger. We've helped more than 6,200 businesses secure $280 million in local, state, federal, and private sector funding, and assisted more than 4,300 businesses in applying for $343 million in PPP and EIDL loans. And throughout this work, we have assisted businesses of all types across the city, with a particular focus on supporting small businesses in the hardest hit communities, including vulnerable minority and immigrant-owned businesses and those in low and moderate income neighborhoods. To support businesses to open and operate, the city launched the New York City Business Quick Start program, a historic $11 million service for small businesses. Quick Start provides small businesses a sole point of contact to help navigate city regulations, including permits, license, certificates, inspections, violations, and sign-offs. The initiative guarantees a 48-hour response to all small business inquiries to ensure business owners are guided through any processes and questions quickly and effectively. SBS small business advocates are the lead points of contact for small businesses and help troubleshoot and navigate the regulatory environment and challenges that come up in the process of launching or running a business. Some of the businesses that can benefit from Quick Start include the restaurants, bars, cafes, supermarkets, bodegas, meat markets, apparel stores, hardware stores, pharmacies, bookstores, laundromats, shoe repair shops, and beauty salons. Once fully operationalized, this effort will be a collaboration between over 100 city personnel across key agencies, including SBS, Department of Buildings, Department of Environmental Protection, Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, and the Department of Fire, the Fire Department. Small business advocates walk businesses through the regulatory process and cut through the red tape by working together with our colleagues at the city and state regulatory agencies and utilities. SBS also has a team of compliance advisors that go directly to the businesses or meet with the business owner virtually. In the consultation, they provide a customized checklist to help businesses understand key city rules and requirements and discuss how to avoid fines and violations in the first place by addressing the most commonly issued compliance challenges. Quick Start's ambitious goals were launched on June 21st. We have already made progress on hiring and the needed staff and meeting the goals of the initiative for businesses. SBS teams of small business advocates and compliance advisors have delivered hundreds of services, and the SBS hotline has fielded over 12,000 calls since the launch of the Quick Start, leading to faster openings and an estimated reduction of penalties through education of over $4 million. As we continue to provide new services to support small businesses through the pandemic, I am pleased to announce the launch of the SBS $100 million Small Business Resilience Grant for hard-hit sectors and low and moderate income communities. Access to capital has been the most critical need in the small business community during the pandemic. Hard-hit small businesses in arts, entertainment, recreation, accommodation, and food sectors, or businesses in an LMI neighborhood, as defined by the census tract data, are all eligible. Businesses can apply to receive a $10,000 grant which can be used for payroll and benefits, mortgage, rent, utilities, and other costs. To get more information or to apply, businesses can go to www.covidresilience.nyc. That's covidresilience.nyc, or call the Small Business Hotline at 888-SBS4-NYC. As we continue to fight the COVID-19 pandemic, our city and its entrepreneurs will need to remain innovative. SBS will be here to help the city's many and diverse small businesses comply with all health precautions needed to save lives, along with existing regulations to open and operate a business. We will maintain a thorough and thoughtful and holistic approach to reducing burdens by advocating for outreach and an education-first strategies. As always, thank you to the council and the committee, particularly our committee chair, Jonah, for your efforts to help small businesses get through the pandemic. The passage of Local Law 80 and Local Law 81 have given financial relief to small businesses during these trying times. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I am available for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Before we continue, we'd like to acknowledge Council members Brooks Powers and Councilmember Rosenthal have joined us. I will now turn it over to questions from the chair. Panelists, please stay unmuted if possible during this question and answer period. Thank you. Chair Jonai?
Thank you, Stephanie. Commissioner, thank you for that testimony and your remarks, and thank you for your partnership. I'm so glad to see the announcement of the $100 million grant for hard-hit sectors and businesses in low to moderate income neighborhoods. I understand that the grants could be up to $10,000. Is that correct?
No, the grants are $10,000, so they're
specific amount. Okay, great. So that's roughly 10,000 businesses. Can you help better explain how we will identify these businesses? We've had so many programs, loans, grant programs that perhaps did not equitably make its way out through the outer boroughs and small businesses. Can you help explain how we're going to make sure that this much needed capital is going to get into the hands of the micro businesses, small businesses that truly have been suffering?
Thank you so much for that question, Chair. As you know, several of our programs we've already instituted. We have adjusted with the input from the council, your input from the community to ensure that anything that we do put out, any resource, is one that we'll be able to help small businesses, particularly businesses that need the most. So what we've done here is that we have really focused on hard-hit sectors. First of all, that's in the arts, entertainment, recreation, food, accommodation sectors, all that were shuttered in the sense of shut down or asked or request to do so at some point. And then, of course, LMI neighborhoods, low, moderate income neighborhoods. So we also are working with in the census tract as well, data, not just zip codes, as we heard before that the community thought it best, and our team as well, as we sort of look at how we can do this better to really narrow in on businesses that need the support, get down to the census tract level in order to get to those micro businesses that need it. We're also have several rounds that we're doing this program in to ensure that we are getting to the smallest of small businesses. So the first round, that will be businesses up to a revenue of $1 million or less, which is also intentional in making sure that we get to really small businesses, particularly in the outer boroughs, to make sure our 5-borough strategy is operational here. So again, targeting the industries, targeting the communities, making sure that we cap the revenue cap for those businesses in rounds so that the smaller ones can get a chance to get in. And then lastly, really have a series of outreach efforts in connection with partners, which I think is very important. So we do have a series of partners that we're working with to help us get to many businesses. our outreach teams as well in the outer boroughs. Myself, we launched a grant on Wednesday. I was in Cambridge right after that into the night, knocking on doors, going door to doors with businesses. Earlier in the day, we were in Harlem on 125th Street doing the same. So we're going to have a real targeted approach here to make sure that those businesses get the resources from this grant.
Thank you for that, Commissioner. So the targeted business, I think the acceptable number that we've always used are 220,000 businesses called New York City Home. Is that correct?
Correct. About, yes. I mean, give or take, it's probably higher than that now.
The targeted industries that have been hardest hit that you outlined, with revenues of less than $1 million a year, how many businesses is that? What is that pool that we're targeting?
Well, we're targeting to get to about 10,000 businesses. And I said that was the first round I mentioned. I apologize. There was the second round and the third. So it goes up to all the way to 3 million in the second round, and then the third, anyone else can apply and be eligible for that.
Okay. So may I ask a little bit differently then? The fixated amount of 100 million is fixed. 10,000 is the grant. Those industries that you mentioned and outlined, do we know how many small businesses that are in the arts, the entertainment, the food that you had outlined? Do you know how many small businesses in New York City fall into those industries that we're targeting? The actual number or close to it, an estimated number of businesses?
Yeah, we know that, and we'll get that right before I conclude my part here. But I do know, broadly speaking, that we do have about 112,000 or so businesses in LMI communities, which we're sort of trying to focus our efforts here. But we'll get the team to get the exact or something close to the number.
So that's the point I'm making. That $100 million sounds like a lot of money. If we have 112,000 businesses and we're looking at grants of 10,000, they may not be a second round. How many of them actually have revenue of less than $1 million that are in these in the targeted industries and areas, which I support fully? Where $10,000 grants of 100 divided by 100 million, you're looking at 10,000 businesses. This may not have the ability to meet the needs of the first round, let alone go to a second round. Or am I wrong here?
No, look, you are correct in the sense that, if you look back at the liquidity that was poured into the city through the PPP program, upwards of $26 billion, that's the type of efforts that was needed to keep a lot of these businesses afloat. We understand also through the EIDL program, through also the shuttered venues program, a few $1 billion there, and also to the restaurant revitalization program. Obviously we're doing what we can to make sure that we supplement some of the efforts that were made through all those federal programs and liquidity programs that were provided in the communities. But we know also that, a lot of those businesses did not receive, some of those fundings. And that's why we are sort of going ahead and with this particular grant program to give them a much needed boost as we go into the holiday season.
Thank you for that, Commissioner. Is there going to be restrictions if they receive grants or loans through the other programs that they can't apply for this? Or will those businesses be able to apply for this grant, although they've received help in the past?
Yeah, so again, we're targeting trying to get to businesses who did not receive. So we have restrictions on this particular grant for businesses. If you did receive the shuttered venues grant, would not be able to receive this one. If you receive the restaurant revitalization grant, I would not be able to receive this one as well.
Thank you for that. I'm looking forward to working. We have a few, weeks left in this year, and I hope that we can come up with a systematic approach to making sure the outreach is done, in particular to these out of boroughs and small communities, these business owners that will never be able to find out this program exists. And by the time they do, typically the money is depleted and there is no additional fund. Do we have any idea of how many businesses are expected to apply in the first round, only based on the research that you've done already and the outreach that you've discussed with your partners? And I'm sure that would be chambers and bids and organizations that represent industries. Do you have any sense of what this could look like?
Yeah, look, I think we, typically when we put out a program within the first, few weeks, we get, a few thousand applications. This is the time that we believe that we'll get similar reaction here. We are working, for instance, with, the Bronx Chamber, the Brooklyn Chamber, Queens Chamber, Manhattan Chamber, Staten Island, as well, all the folks that we're working with to make sure that we're getting to these businesses. Also, some of the sector associations like the New York State Latino Restaurant Association, and the like. And so also United Way helping us here as well. So there's a robust effort to make sure that the word is out and we are getting to those folks. And if we're not, if we're not successful in one way, we have another way. So if our general outreach that we're doing, we're not getting the folks, we have the partners who are helping us to get to other folks. And if that's not working, we have our own street team and outreach teams that are going out. We have elected officials like yourself who've been tremendous in helping to get information out to the public. And so that's what we're doing, door to door, advertising, marketing, going through the associations, speaking to those, of course, the bids, the chambers, and then community organizations who work within these areas to make sure that folks are aware. But our intention when we designed this is to make sure that we are getting to the targeted audience here.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm really looking forward to the outcome of this much needed funding and how it gets into the outer boroughs and in districts that have a tendency to be overlooked. So thank you. And I know that you're going to do a great job in doing so, and the partners that you've outlined will do their part. Commissioner, can we discuss the key to NYC mandate and what the regulations that are now being put on these business owners for employees and patrons of their businesses, as well as the businesses that must comply with this new order?
Yeah, so the mayor, as you know, made an announcement of the key to NYC being applicable to all private sector employers in the city. There's a couple components to what the mayor had mentioned, requiring, vaccinations of children starting December 14th, between the ages of 5 to 11. If you're going to be participating in public indoor activities. And so that's one area. And then full vaccination starting December 27 for people 12 years and older participating in public indoor activities as well. They'll have to show 2 vaccination doses, of course, except for those who are utilizing Johnson & Johnson. Starting December 27th, also all employees at private sector businesses must have received at least 1 dose. And then further details, as the mayor had mentioned, of this requirement will be available on December 15th, as well as the various FAQs, et cetera, to explain further and answer questions that folks may have.
This is kicking off on December 14th.
For children, 5 to 11, I believe, the proof of vaccination for indoor activities, at least 1 dose, that starts on the 14th. But for private sector employers, it starts on December 27th. But on December 15th, as mentioned, more information will be available then. What I essentially said here is what is available now, and the FAQs and guidance documents, etc., will be available on December 15th.
I'm so concerned. We did a tremendous outreach when the mandate began. 4 days from now, our small businesses will have to comply with this new mandate. We have not done the outreach. We have not reached out, provided the signs and the information to the small businesses that are impacted by it. We're not going to be able to get the word out in time, let alone have the business owners prepare for this mandate that kicks off on the 14th, and then later on the second phase of 27th. What are we going to do? Are these businesses going to find themselves being in violation of a new mandate that they're not aware of? And because we didn't educate and have the time to provide the information, are we exposing these businesses to further fines and liabilities?
Yeah, well, we, from our perspective and what our role here at SBS is, is to make sure that we communicate out. So we've already began an extensive communication campaign to businesses to let them know what's happening and what's coming down the pike. And we've already met with and communicated with all of our bids, all 76 of them. We've communicated with the Mayor's Small Business Advisory Sector Advisory Council, which includes all the chambers, and as I mentioned before, the Latino Restaurant, Nightlife, Chinatown Partnership, many other small business leaders are on there. We've briefed them and communicated with them. Also our Food and Beverage Hospitality Partnership, we've done that as well. On top of that, we've reached out through our, how we connect with businesses, 284,000 of them through their emails and through their bids and CBO partners. So we have been really pushing this out there as much as we can to let folks know on social media, also on webinar series, etc., similar to what we've done back in September when this mandate came out. So again, our role at SBS is to communicate what we know and the rules and regs to the small businesses, and we've done significant outreach. We are continuing to do that outreach to let them know what's coming, and we will, we won't stop until businesses know. They know exactly what's happening, and I believe from our efforts, from the first mandate, which we had some extensive efforts and opportunity to promote to let small businesses know what's happening, we were able to get that information out. So that's as it pertains to the 27th, where actually the private sector business is, those must receive at least one dose. The outreach and the guidance documents, in particular, the guidance documents, etc., and the ramp up period of those 2 weeks that starts once that gets out on the 15th. So we believe that we will have a lot more opportunity to share with small businesses once we have additional guidance and it's provided. For the private sector businesses, we will then go out and continue this outreach we've been doing.
Thank you, Commissioner. Can you share some of the concerns that were brought up during your conversations with those stakeholders and industries as to the challenges that this mandate will be on their industry, their corridors?
Yeah, I think it's what we've heard before, and I think it's consistent with what small businesses have said. Folks are wanted to make sure that they're in compliance. They wanted to make sure they understand what the regulations is requesting. For instance, what does it mean to when an inspector comes? What should I expect from an inspector? Folks are asking those questions, again, some of which were going to be readily available once the guidance materials are put out and published on the 15th, similarly to what we did before? And also, do they need extra signage? That's a question that came up. Also, can we help them comply with the law? It's like, absolutely. We have our compliance advocates who also work with our small businesses as they did throughout the pandemic. Our compliance advisors going door to door, working with them, helping them to understand challenges and helping to reduce confusion if there's any from those small businesses. So again, that's the role of SBS, and we've heard those concerns from them, and we've taken those into account, and we'll continue to help them navigate this process, which is why we're here.
Concern, Commissioners, this is that time of the year where businesses are planning on the greatest amount of revenue from sales during the holidays. Companies and families are planning holiday parties, booking party rooms, unaware that this mandate will prevent them from celebrating or opening up their businesses. This is the wrong time of the year. I just don't know why we want to do this and undermine the sales that these businesses wait all year round for before we introduce a new mandate which will restrict the business opportunities. In particular, Commissioner, tourists that will be visiting New York City during the holiday season that have made plans and may not be aware that if their child is not vaccinated, that they cannot patronize a business or an eatery or any type of indoor activity. It's going to be harmful. It's going to undermine the business's ability to survive and thrive. Many of these businesses wait 11 months knowing that in December, they will have the revenue that they require to help them get through the next year. This is the time of sales. You're not making money now, you're done. You just undermine their very ability to do so. What do I say as commissioner? My phone's going off the hook, emails. What are we going to, how do we answer these businesses in their rightful complaint when we put this mandate on their busiest time of the year for them?
Yeah, again, going back to sort of our role here is one, education to supplement whatever needs a business may have. I mean, our grant is also an opportunity for businesses as well. And then our other resources financially to assist or workforce or what have you, whatever they need of, we've been there and supplied even through the first Key to NYC program. So look, we understand, we are SBS, we deal with small businesses. We understand fully the complication and the complexity that we're dealing with here. This is a very important time of year for small businesses. I think, what I believe you're seeing from the city and what we're seeing with this particular Omicron variant, 4 times more infectious than the Delta variant, challenges that we're hearing from the healthcare community. We're seeing it on the rise, cases in the city and also the state. I believe the state is even making some sort of announcements. I've heard today around rising numbers of COVID around the state, city, elsewhere. So look, I hear you. I think part of our role at SBS, we don't make those calls as to what the doctors are saying and what the healthcare community wants to, how they like to address the concerns here and keep us all safe. But we certainly, our role is to, educate, give resources, and be there for the small business to help them navigate. And then when there are, the occasion for inspections to occur, really advocate strongly like we did. for warnings and make sure that there's an opportunity to cure or an opportunity for a business to make an adjustment without being penalized. And those are the things we've done, even with the first key to NYC. Now that it's being expanded, we were able to be effective with that. And, very minimal number of businesses, as you know, were really penalized or fined during that time. And so, the intent is education, resources, and make sure that everybody is compliant, and give them that knowledge so they're able to effectively plan as well for their business.
Commissioner, thank you for that. But we're telling tourists planning on visiting New York City for the holiday season, don't bother coming if you're not fully vaccinated. Don't bother coming if your children aren't vaccinated. We don't care if you're in your home country, it's even permitted to have your child vaccinated. We are turning our backs on tourists and the much needed revenue that the city needs. We have just undermined any advancement for this holiday. We have just told tourists, don't visit New York City at the most crucial time. That's the message that we just sent them. And I know that as SBS, your responsibility is to educate and make sure that they have resources. This is the wrong message at the wrong time. And I'm suspect as to why it had to happen in such a brief time. That's not for you to answer. I know that you can't. But our businesses are going to have to make a decision. Our tourists are going to have to make a decision because someone's made the decision for them. And if I'm a small business and the next 2 weeks are going to determine whether or not I keep my doors open, you are going to force me to make a decision not to comply so I can survive. This is a terrible dilemma that we have put our businesses in. No advance notice, no advance warning at the most critical time of the year. It's unfair. I'm speaking now for those businesses. I'm speaking to the countless owners that contact me saying, why don't you just put us out of our misery and just shut us down? Why let me hold on to hope and continue to invest more money in a business that cannot survive? These are not my words. These are the words of our small businesses. And then we put a carrot in front of them and say, yeah, but we're going to give you a $10,000 grant. Numbers aren't there. It's not justifiable. It's actually, we're looking to undermine their very existence. And all we're doing is helping e-commerce, helping the businesses in other areas out of the city, in the state, thrive, while we devastate our own small business community and stakeholders. People that have built this city, that live here, have invested here, are being undermined by the very city that they built and pay taxes to. I cannot possibly support this. Not because I don't want to, because I can see how unfair it will be. And there's nothing that you can say or do about it. It's not your choice. It's not my choice. The administration made the decision. It is the wrong decision. And I apologize for making you the point person to defend this. And that's not my intent, because it's too hard to defend. No one can defend this. And no one can make this right but this administration. It wasn't thought out well enough, and I still don't understand the urgency. We're just going to undermine everything, all the investments that we've made over the last 2 years to help these businesses survive, as well as the sacrifices that they've made. It's a sad day in New York City. The message is New York City is closed to small business. Go to Westchester. Go to upstate New York. they'll embrace you there. But in New York City, think twice before you open up. That's the message we just sent. Is there anything that you can share with Commissioner on what the next administration, based on the work that you've done, based on SBS and the feedback that you received, that we can perhaps share with the incoming administration as the way their focus should be?
On general small business matters. Oh, absolutely. We've already shared some of our thoughts. We have to continue to provide an environment, or a regulatory environment that's conducive for business growth. We have to do more, continue to do more. Really look deep into all the regs and the fines and fees and the regulatory challenges that small businesses face, and we've got to keep digging. I mean, if we've come a long way, local law 80, local law 81, even before then, other laws that we've had, 123 others, really was very helpful and continue to be helpful to get our small business regulatory environment one that we can actually conduct business and be fruitful here in the city. I think secondly, we talked about the needs of small businesses as it pertains to financing needs. It's not just the small business or the city to provide this. You have a whole financial mechanism in the city and financial sector that needs to be more responsive to small businesses. And the city, with our bully pulpit and our ability to challenge the private sector and how they address the needs of small businesses, and particularly, Black and brown businesses and women-owned businesses who have significant challenges in getting capital. That is a major, major challenge. And I think, the way that we go about it is engage in the private sector, but also challenging the financial sector and markets to really address this as a real issue for small businesses. And then, of course, we also talked about workforce and making sure that there's a trained workforce that is ready and able to engage and also is equipped, and what the city can do there. So look, there's several things we've been discussing and things we've learned, being ready for emergencies, emergency preparedness, just in general, making sure that also our agencies continue to work together to help small businesses in the city coming together as one, working with each agency, making sure that they have small businesses are prioritized with every agency. We have several recommendations, even when it comes to what small businesses have to deal with just in operating their business, et cetera. So we've definitely communicated some of those thoughts, and as I mentioned here.
Thank you, Commissioner. I hope the new administration sees the value in you and your team and will keep you on board, because we've got very difficult times ahead, and the learning curve of anyone coming in is going to be a time delay. Our businesses need help. Our small business community is reliant on the city, and the expertise that you and your team have developed is one that's going to help this transition. I really hope that they see you as a partner and an asset as they make these decisions. I'm not sure if any of the council members have questions. Stephanie, I know that we have Brooks Powers and Rosenthal, and at any time, if they have any questions, I just want to give them the opportunity.
That's right, Chair. Councilor Brooks Powers is on. I don't believe she has any questions at this time.
You'll let me know if any other council member joins as we
Yes.
continue talking to the commissioner. Commissioner, I have a few more questions for you, but perhaps you can help give an update on the number of businesses that have been able to access the amnesty through local law 81. This time frame that they can apply for the amnesty is due to sunset. Do we have any information on how many businesses have been able to take advantage of this amnesty? And perhaps you can explain a little bit about the amnesty for those businesses that are participating today that are not even aware.
So thank you, Chair Jonah. I do have Deputy Commissioner Jeff Shear from DOF who will take that question if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. But and I hope that they can explain a little bit about the amnesty program, because
Yes.
I find out how businesses still not aware.
Yes. So good morning, Councilmember Jonai. And before I get into the amnesty program, I first want to thank you for your leadership on this issue and for partnering with the administration on this amnesty program for ECB judgments. We call it the FARA program, Fines and Interest Reduction Enabling Recovery. And this program started on September 20th of this year and runs through December 20th. And it offers businesses and individuals who have ECB judgments to receive either abatement of default penalties and interest, or if they do not have default penalties, a reduction of the base fine penalty if they pay the amount due online. And I also want to, before I go further, let you know that DOF has done a significant amount of outreach to ensure the success of the program. So we have had a $100,000 advertising campaign. We sent out over 200,000 letters to the entire database of people who have ECB judgments and would be eligible to apply. And we also sent in September and October 125,000 outreach emails. And we repeated that last month to let people know that the deadline was approaching. So to answer your question, so far, nearly 17,000 entities have participated in FARA through December 7th. That includes 6,400 individuals and 10,500 businesses. Together, the amount paid so far is $20.4 million. And the savings from abated penalties, fines, and interest is $32 million.
Thank you for that, Deputy Commissioner. That's 17,000 is a significant amount of participants in this amnesty program. How many could have? So how many ECB violations that fall under the amnesty program do we currently have on the books that we know, whether it be individuals or businesses?
Right. So I don't have precise numbers, but I again will say that we sent 200,000 letters to individuals and businesses with outstanding ECB judgments.
So that would be roughly 8%. If 200,000 letters went out and only 17,000 responded, right? A little 8.5%.
Something on that nature, yes.
We've only got a week left or so, 10 days before this amnesty period ends, and those that could have taken advantage of it will not be able to. Is there going to be a final push of additional notices advising that you've got 1 week, 10 days, or is this administration prepared to perhaps extend the amnesty for any period of time?
So that's an excellent question. So we do have a push going on. So as I said earlier, at the end of November, we sent out emails to everyone that we had previously contacted to let them know that the deadline's coming up for precisely that reason. However, as I'm sure you're aware, the local law that authorizes the amnesty program gives the Finance Commissioner the authority to extend the program by an additional 90 days. So that is something that DOF is actively reviewing right now. We have not yet made a decision, but we are closely monitoring the program and having active discussions as to whether we should consider a program extension.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. I would encourage it just based on the number of respondents and those that can participate and take advantage of this limited time offer. It doesn't happen too often that we offer amnesty programs, and the savings is tremendous, tremendous. So I would encourage that you continue working with DOF on this, and hopefully the administration will do exactly that, extend it for a period of 90 days. What was the expected number when we discussed the amnesty? We knew the pool that would qualify. Did we have a projection on how many businesses or individuals would participate?
So we did not have a projection in terms of the number of participants. We did have a projection regarding the revenue. So we felt that the program would bring in $40 million. As you know, we ran a very similar program 5 years ago, and that program brought in $45 million. So as of the date that I gave the numbers, we were slightly ahead of pace and compared to 5 years ago. And the challenge that we face is that I believe half of the revenue that we received 5 years ago came in the last week. So there is definitely a rush at the end, which is consistent with other programs we run that have deadlines, human nature, lots of people wait until the last minute. Now, I want to be clear, we are not using this as an excuse to say that we're not going to extend, but in the interest of transparency, want to let you know that yes, we're ahead of pace, but where we end up compared to 5 years ago is still very much uncertain because of how much revenue we received at the last minute.
And that information is as what date?
That's as of December 7th.
I understand the concern, and I hope perhaps, I don't think it's intuition as much as it requires doling out money to take advantage. So the amnesty is not a full waiver. They still have to pay a reduced fine, although the interest and penalties have been reduced and the face value of the original violation dollar amount has been reduced. It still means that they have to pay to take advantage.
Yes, it does. You are correct, sir.
It is extremely difficult when they're trying to survive. So I could understand why they would hold on to the money as long as they can.
Yes.
Maybe they don't have it, but there's certainly uses of that money. And if they're going to wait, it's because they're making a business decision. That's capital they can use and reinvest in their business today instead of spending on the amnesty. So it's understandable. Is there anything else that you can add to this that we can do to help educate or encourage the 90-day expansion of this amnesty? What should industry holders be doing today to help continue the 90-day potential, as well as get the word out or take advantage of this? Can you share any of your thoughts?
Yes, well, certainly in terms of getting the word out, if you or any other council member wants to partner with us on an event, a press release, we are very interested to hear that. We have been running a social media campaign as well. So given that only 10 days remain, so doing an event might be challenging, but we in our press office very much would be anxious to work with you or any council member who wants to do joint publicity to get the word out. In terms of the possible extension, I think we're very interested in hearing from you and other council members. So you've made your thoughts clear. And I should say one of the things that we are monitoring is whether people who are trying to get amnesty are having any difficulty achieving compliance. So as you may know, the ECB violations consist of two types. There are simple fines. Those are, for example, assessed by the sanitation department, and those simply require a payment. There are other violations that come before the Environmental Control Board that require compliance. So these, for example, are violations issued by the Department of Buildings and other agencies. So paying is not sufficient. You also have to correct the underlying situation. So what we have been doing, we've been in close contact with the Department of Buildings, the Fire Department, Department of Environmental Protection, all of the major issuing agencies, and we've been monitoring to see that they've been able to keep up with compliance requests. And we've been also, we do have a customer relationship manager way for customers to contact us directly. And we've been monitoring inquiries on that. So far, the number of incidents has been small, but it's something that we are closely monitoring. And if there were to be reports of difficulties, we would certainly take that into account when deciding whether to extend the program for an additional 90 days. And obviously, you and other council members help to be our eyes and ears on the ground, so we would be interested in hearing from you.
Awesome. Can I also make another suggestion to you? Can you perhaps, and I'll do it on my end, can you your department reach out to the other council members to educate them that, hey, you better get the word out, 10 days left to your small business communities and individuals that can participate. And I would even go a step further, if permitted, giving them the data that they need. Council member, in your district, you have 12,000 homes and properties that have these violations that have 10 days left. For further information, contact us. They can do their own outreach, perhaps their own mailer, their own door-to-door campaign to help get the word out so that they don't miss this opportunity. Perhaps that would not only help get the word out, but serve as a reminder to the council members that they can be helping their constituency.
We will reach out to the council. That's an excellent suggestion.
Will you be able to give them a breakdown of the the violations that currently exist in their districts?
I don't know if we're going to be able to do that given the time constraints. We will look into that, but we'll certainly reach out. We certainly can propose suggested language if they, a canned letter email, if it meets their satisfaction that they would want to send out. I will look into whether we can break down the stats by council district. I don't know if we can do it within the time period that we have left.
You know, it would be easier perhaps zip codes. That I know you can do with a push a button and identify the zip codes. And I know that could be overlapping and zip codes can be.
Yes.
But that would give them an estimate that I think they can then further look into, and we can provide them with the details of how they can do their own research and outreach.
Yes, I'm sure it's easier by zip code. I know it's harder than pushing a button, but we will look at that as an alternative.
I'm doubting it, Deputy, and I'm not questioning your ability to do so. And I hope by the end of the close of business day today that you have told me that email has gone out.
Okay.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. I want to, we've been joined by Councilmember Dinowitz. And again, I'll ask Stephanie if anyone has any questions that any of the council members do for either the deputy commissioner or Commissioner Doris to please use the raise hand function.
Thank you, Chair. We'll pause a moment to allow the council members to raise their hand if they want to ask a question.
Great. And now continue with my next question then for Commissioner Doris. SBS worked with the newly created Office of Street Vendor Enforcement to protect brick and mortar small businesses. Or do they currently work with this new created the Office of Street Vendor Enforcement?
If I'm sorry, I didn't hear you there. So are we working with the Office of Street Vendor Enforcement at DCWP?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course. We are in contact with our colleagues at DCWP and also not only us, our DOT, DOH, MHPD, everyone is represented on that according to local law 18, the requirements there. So yeah, we're all at the table and communicating with our colleagues at DCWP, who's leading the charge.
Can you give us any information? I mean, I've been inundated by this, by small business corridors that have had a tremendous amount of street vendors appear competing directly with brick and mortar, and some of the unfortunate incidents, as well as unintended consequences, and as well as the undermining of brick and mortar challenges that they have in confronting these street vendors that have created everything from not only direct competition, but taking up sidewalk space that's limited, preventing them from putting out their own products, creating a litter, noise, including odors from food vendors that are entering establishments. Can you help explain your communications and interactions that you've heard and what we can do to help address some of the issues?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the local law 18, as you know, sort of sought to address some of these long-term challenges that we see as we walk the corridors and speak to both street vendors and brick and mortar businesses and try to figure out how do we address both of their concerns. But for us, the street vendors are business owners as well as business brick and mortar businesses, and so at SBS, we have to provide the resources that either of these businesses may need. I think the bigger challenge that's seeing to be addressed by the committee is to deal with some of the systemic issues, and that's why I think it's a great collection of folks from the council that's recommended, the mayor's recommended, the agency side, and there's lots of conversation happening there, and certainly they're going to release their suggestions and recommendations, etc. But certainly, we've worked, as you know, with both entities to make sure that whatever assistance and follow through that they may need, they're getting, and we are participating. Our team is participating in the committee as well. That's reviewing all of these issues.
Any of the obstacles that you can help them to our attention, and how we perhaps can provide additional resources or approaches on how we handle the concerns?
Yeah, I think, look, I think in general, we've, from an SBS side, for instance, we've partnered with some of the advocates from the street vendor side in conjunction with some local economic development groups who are, again, seeking to give the assistance to the street vendor community that they need. And of course, we work with all of the bids and brick and mortar businesses, and again, communication, understanding what the requirements are, what you need, how you can get it, how we facilitate that, understanding each other as well, like the complications on both sides. But I want to defer a bit here to this advisory board that was created by the law, who are examining this particular issue right now in extreme detail, and who then will put forth their recommendations. And so again, which the agencies, the street vendor community, the brick and mortar community, our chambers, everyone is involved there. And so I think that's the right way forward. I think the council put that forth when they passed that law. I think that's the right way forward. Get everybody to the table. Let's discuss this, and let's see what what we can come up with that really addressed this matter on so multiple fronts, which we really have to deal with in order for us to keep moving forward as a city.
Thank you, Commissioner. The feedback that I'm receiving is small businesses still face issues with the street vendors, the response times, the type of enforcement, the follow-up. So it's one thing where it takes a considerable amount of time to have someone from this unit come out to address the issue. And then immediately the lack of follow-up, because as they clear them off a corridor, if they're not complying with the laws, including which I've received a tremendous amount of complaints from the ADA community on being able to navigate the city streets that are now cluttered and blocked and have become obstacles for them to navigate through. But the issue is the response time and then the follow-up. When a street vendor that is not in compliance is removed, or several are removed from a commercial corridor, they're coming back the following day. Or they're being moved from one corridor to another corridor. And we're relying on SBS to actually be the voice in this think tank group that you're a part of. Is there any expectation that SBS is doing bringing or being the vocal group on these concerns and the approaches that you suggest can be adapted to address the issues?
Yeah, look, Mr. Chair, we we have the constituency of businesses, and that's street vendor businesses and brick and mortar businesses. Obviously, we do manage and oversee all the bids in the city from an oversight standpoint, and also work with them very closely. And so we are also presenting their concerns. We are also partnering with Street Vendor Project and others in other cases, and are presenting the challenges that those vendors do face, as well as small businesses. And so, I think the advisory board is, I think, very strategic in the way that it has all these voices at the table. And I think, I certainly look forward to the proposals and recommendations that are coming out of there, because I think that's the best place in which a lot of this should be tackled, with everybody who's involved and has a stake in this at the table. And I think they're working through that now, and certainly we look forward to hearing and seeing what comes out of that. But I believe that that's the appropriate place, and we are at the table, and we are doing our jobs at SBS for advocating for small businesses in general, and obviously bringing the concerns of both communities to the table, as that is our role here. But I think this is the right place. I think the council did the right thing in setting up the advisory board, enforcement office, etc. I think all that addressed some of these systemic and very challenging and complicated issues. This is that businesses are facing in this particular manner. So, I think we're leaning in a bit into that board to help bring us to where we need to be.
Because you've been interacting with this board, do we know how many complaints have come in on street vendors?
I do not. I mean, I believe we can talk to our colleagues at DCWP and get a sense of what that is.
Is anyone with us from DCW today that can help address this or answer some of these questions? Stephanie?
No, Chair, no one from DCWP today.
My understanding is some of the commercial corridors and businesses literally have to wait months for any type of action. And that is just a basic walkthrough to address their complaints. And many of them have given up on complaining, calling in, and voicing their concerns for lack of follow-up. And that may be because we didn't put the number of resources in place to actually put enforcement out there in the numbers that are needed. Any thoughts?
No, just to say, I think on the specifics around the enforcement and those, our colleagues at DCWP will be best to answer that. Just the membership alone of that board, I think, speaks to the seriousness of the matter. I think it speaks to the urgency of the matter and the intentionality of the city and the council to address it. So, Councilman, I'm with you about this is a very, very, very important matter, and I think as we walk through this with that board where they are tackling these same issues, these very issues right now, they're meeting and they're addressing, and again, the makeup of that board is really telling of I think the outcome we will see, where the street vendors are there, the brick and mortar is there, our chambers are there, real estate community is there, immigration community is there, the bid community is there. I really think we have a solid group of folks seriously looking at this particular matter.
And I just want to bring up something that comes to mind in my recent interaction with the small business. They're receiving fines for sanitation tickets that are being created by the street vendors. And because the street vendor doesn't have a legal address, they issue the fine to the brick and mortar that is being created by a street vendor. In addition, the debris that's accumulated while the street vendors are out there, they're using the corner baskets for their garbage cans, which overflows and then creates another problem for these commercial corridors that just can't keep up. But we're not talking about, we're talking about bags that are placed in the trash cans that prevent any additional trash from being placed into it, as well as the debris then that gets thrown on the floor and scattered by the wind and others. I bring that to your attention, and I'm sure it's come up in conversation, but I didn't realize how serious it was. Literally, dozens and dozens of garbage bags placed in and around the trash basket that is meant for pedestrian use, that is now not available, and they just throwing the papers on the floor and creating a litter condition that businesses cannot compete with. And that burden is falling on them. That's just one that comes to mind. Stephanie, do any of the council members have any questions?
No, we'll provide another opportunity. If any council members have questions, please raise your hand on Zoom now.
Commissioner, if no one has any other questions for you, I want to thank you. Truly thank you for your friendship, your partnership, and your commitment, and the work that you've done with your entire team to the small business community. You have been an extremely valuable voice and a resource to these small businesses. I'll never find the words to thank you, because you didn't do this from the convenience of your home. In many cases, we walked together the commercial corridors, interacted with these business owners, shared information, introductions, and it's gone a long way. I hope SBS will continue that active engagement, dealing with business by business in each commercial corridor The experience has been one that has made me a better legislator and a better person and more understanding of the various businesses that are out there and their different needs and issues that they face. So thank you for that. And thank your entire team for their commitment, their hard work, and making it really an honor for me to be able to serve and work with them as we continue to make this the greatest city in the world. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you as well. I was reminiscing the first time when I took over this position, May 11th, 2020. A few weeks, I think maybe less than 2 weeks, I was out with you out in the Bronx. Was my first interaction coming out in the height of the shutdown and the pandemic. And we walked and talked to those businesses and gave out information and heard from them and came back and created policies to help solve some of those challenges those businesses were facing. And we had several more of those, as you know, in your area, your district, and then out of your district too. We were in other parts of the city together doing this work. So thank you for your commitment, sir, as well. The entire committee, the entire council, certainly was an honor to work with you during this time as well. And your ardent advocacy for small businesses. So appreciate you too, sir. And certainly SBS, I know our team here, I would like to also thank them in giving them, lots of credit, walking those corridors, 175 we've done already. Actually, it's more now as of yesterday and today. And so we want to make sure our city come back in an equitable way. And you all have been great partners in helping us to get there. So thank you, sir.
Grateful to you. So Stephanie, unless anyone has any questions.
Yes, I saw Councilmember Brooks Powers had her hand raised. Councilmember, we'll be limiting questions and answers to 5 minutes. Please proceed.
Sure, thank you and good morning. It wasn't really a question, just wanted to acknowledge and thank Chair Joe Nye for his leadership on this committee. It's been an amazing time serving on this committee with you, as well as thanking the council staff and to Commissioner Doris, Southeast Queens own. I know he's originally from Brooklyn, but we claim him in Southeast Queens. Thank you for your partnership, for coming out to my district multiple times, and I look forward to working with you in the future to continue fighting a good fight for our MWBEs and local small businesses. So thank you so much.
Thank you, council member.
Thank you, Councilmember Brooks Powers. And, nobody's perfect. And Commissioner, you don't come from the Bronx, so I understand.
I love the Bronx, though. I love the Bronx.
Thank you, my dear friend. And I'm sure you or your team will be staying on as we get from the public testimony portion of the panelists. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We will now turn to public testimony. I'd like to remind everyone that unlike our typical council hearings, we will be calling individuals one by one to testify. Each panelist will be given 5 minutes to speak. Please begin once the sergeant has started the timer. For this portion as well, council members who have questions for a panelist should use the raise hand function in Zoom, and I will call on you after that panelist has completed their testimony. For panelists, once your name is called, a member of our staff will unmute you, and the sergeant at arms will give you the go-ahead to begin upon setting the timer. Please wait for the sergeant to announce that you may begin before delivering your testimony. As a reminder, your testimony must be limited to 5 minutes. I would now like to welcome Michelle Shang to testify, followed by Sang Raksa. Michelle?
Starting time.
I'd like to thank Chair Jonai and the members of the committee for holding this hearing. My name is Michelle Shang, and I'm the Small Business Technical Assistance Coordinator at the Asian American Federation. Through our small business program, we serve Asian-owned small businesses across the city. Inspection and violation problems are one of the main issues that our business owners face. So today, I want to speak to the committee about the particular difficulties that immigrant and low English proficiency small business owners face at every single step of the regulatory enforcement process. First of all, there's a serious lack of in-language compliance education. As a result, business owners often just don't understand the minutia of various department codes. Early COVID-19 regulations are a great example of this. They were constantly changing without sufficient in-language outreach. So business owners were slapped with tickets for requirements that they didn't even know about to begin with. In contrast, AAF would like to applaud the implementation of the Key to NYC initiative and would like to thank the Asian Community Liaison at SBS in particular, as they coordinated with community organizations in order to do far better in-language outreach. Inspectors on Key to NYC also prioritized education and warnings over issuing violations and penalties. So we'd really like to see an expansion of these kinds of efforts. This also leads me into my second point, which is that inspection procedures are often particularly onerous for LEP business owners who have trouble communicating with inspectors. While we know that in theory, language line access is available to inspectors, we continue to receive cases where inspectors made no efforts to communicate with business owners in language. These language barriers in inspection practices lead to hostile inspections and repeated follow-up inspections. Inspection data on the open data system suggests that indeed there are more restaurant inspections in neighborhoods where Asian businesses dominate the commercial corridor. This lack of communication and repeated inspection practice in immigrant neighborhoods has seriously eroded trust in the city. Third and lastly, there is a lack of support in the follow-up process for violations. Navigating oath and city agency websites is very confusing for English speakers already, but it's almost impossible for LEP business owners. As a result, immigrant business owners are often unaware of the fact that, for example, in addition to paying the fine for a ticket, they also have to obtain a certificate of compliance, meaning that they might have an open violation on their records for years and not even know about it. AAF would like to applaud efforts like Local Laws 80 and 81 to reduce penalties on regulations. However, the scope of these efforts, as noted, is limited. So we'd really like to see these kinds of efforts expand to different sectors, especially immigrant-led sectors. To this end, AAF requests that the City Council first prioritize in-language compliance education. Second, offer small business relief through reducing civil penalties, expanding efforts like Local Laws 80 and 81. 3, introduce a streamlined system of inspection feedback to allow for businesses to report harassment and lack of language access. 4th, advocate for city agencies to hire more culturally competent inspectors. 5th, and lastly, expand language access and culturally competent assistance in SBS programs. I'll be submitting a written testimony with more details on my recommendations and concerns. And thank you again to the committee and to the chair for your efforts to help small businesses. And I hope we can work together to ensure they continue to flourish.
Sheng, I want to thank you for that. And I'm glad that you're submitting your testimony in writing. And I promise to follow up, and committee of business will also follow up with you. The suggestions that you made valid and are worthy of exploring, not only exploring, but delivering. You're not unreasonable in this effort. So I'm grateful to you for your testimony and the voice that you are for these small businesses. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I believe that concludes our public testimony. If we have inadvertently missed anyone who has registered to testify today and is yet to be called, please use the Zoom raise hand function and you will be called on in the order that your hand was raised. Chair, seeing no hands raised, we will proceed with your closing remarks, please.
Thank you, Stephanie. I want to thank all of those that participated in today's hearing and throughout the last 4 years as chair of small business. We've been able to do quite a bit together. Obviously, we have a lot more to do, and I've never felt more committed to being a voice for small businesses. New York City needs our small businesses and should value them as the partner that they are to the well-being of this city. We're going to continue this, and I want to give a special shout out to Stephanie, Noah, Aliyah, and the entire team, including the Sergeant at Arms, for their work on this committee and the work they do for the City Council. I am grateful, and I'll never be able to find the words to truly express my gratitude toward you. Sincerely, you have made it a pleasure for me to serve this city. Thank you all. With that, this will conclude our hearing today on small business. Thank you.